Welcome to 21 Questions, the vlog that poses 21 questions to real estate professionals all across Western Washington. I am Alex Brosey, Windermere Property Manager with JMW Group. Today I'll be asking those 21 questions to a great friend and partner of mine, Charles Lindberg. He's an insurance agent with Goosehead, has done a lot of brokering for me and my clients over the past several years while I was selling hard money, and that guy could bind up something for me in a matter of hours. So a great resource for not only your fix and flippers, but landlords and anybody who's looking for commercial insurance. I'm excited to have him here, get his face on 21 questions, and happy to help you guys learn some more about insurance options.
Charles, welcome to 21 Questions, my friend.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
Hey, so let's kick things off here. Tell us who you are, what do you do, why do you do it, and how long have you been in the industry?
All right. Yeah, so my name's Charles Lindberg. I'm a personal lines insurance broker, and I've been doing this for about 7 years now. And the brokerage I'm with is called Goosehead Insurance. I'm a franchise owner with them, so I own an agency with them. And what exactly do I do? My real job is when I have a new referral or a new client that I'm talking to, my number one job is to basically shop with a bunch of different insurance carriers. And I really focus on primarily home and auto insurance. And then we talk about, ancillary things like boats, RVs, motorcycles, earthquake, flood, all that stuff if it's relevant or if it comes up. And then the other piece I focus on is assisting people who have investment properties, or maybe they're doing something kind of cool, like maybe a fix and flip, or they're just a regular homeowner that has, all of a sudden they want to do a $100,000 renovation. So all that kind of stuff is typically what I deal with.
Awesome. So ever since I've worked with you, you've been a franchise owner. How many people do you work with? How many people are on your team? Who helps Charles get everything done?
That's a good question. So in terms of onboarding new clients, it's just me for now. Eventually down the road, I will have additional people helping me out, but for the moment, I can handle all the inflow of new folks. But the big selling point for our company basically is all the stuff that happens on the back end. So when we have current clients and they need help, I'm not the primary point of contact. I have a dedicated service team for that. And so that's really the big shining point that we have, is we have an incredible service team that handles everything. Typically, they do their best to do it in one phone call, so that you're not, as a client, calling back, spending 40 minutes on hold kind of a deal. So it's a different experience than a lot of insurance companies put you through.
Yeah, and you learn real quick that the good insurance salesman, he might not necessarily have the best, back office team. It's great to be the personable insurance guy who can sell you anything and cover you, but ultimately, you're insuring things so that if something goes wrong, you've got basically your bases covered. And if that part is sluggish or slow, the last thing you want to do is be waiting around for help from the company that you're paying money to, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to feel that someone's actually listening to you and is responding, in a quick manner. And of course, if people still obviously have questions or things are more complicated, I'm still available. But it's just for the routine stuff, we make sure that we have our basically a concierge level service team that's handling all that. So it frees me up to help new people and help more folks. So that's basically how our model's set up.
Nice. So you and I have done a lot of work together. I would have thought that your specialty was fix and flip insurance for all of the clients that I used to send over to you. I now recognize, after having spent more time with you, that you do all kinds of stuff. So I'm curious, do you have maybe a specialty insurance or something of that? And if you do, or even if you don't, what kind of benefit are you bringing to this client versus the next insurance agent?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. A lot of insurance agents don't typically come across people who are doing fix and flips very often. It's kind of a niche thing. It's, from my experience, either you are kind of heavily in that area of insurance and just know those kinds of folks, or you really don't. And maybe one of your clients will call you up one day with, "Hey, I'm buying this property to do this crazy project. Can you help me out?" And the agent's like, I don't know, I haven't done that before. So it's having dealt with a wide variety of different projects and different styles of investors. Some people are buying a property, it seemed, every month or every other month. And then some people were doing one deal or maybe two tops per year. Then there's, folks that have large portfolios of just buy and holds. So there's a mix of folks that we deal with. I would say it's good to talk to someone who is regular contact with folks doing those projects, so you're on top of what they need. You know what the lending teams on the hard money side need. You know what the property managers are looking for. So it's good to talk to someone who's kind of not just dabbled in that arena, but you want to talk to somebody who's actually done some experience and knows the different insurance products and knows which one might apply to which type of project based upon, what the actual, budget might be, what kind of work is being done, what the timeline is. All those things are really important and can dictate what kind of policy you need and for how long you might want it.
Yeah, definitely. And that, one thing that I learned very quickly dealing with hard money clients and trying to get them insurance binders so that, our processors and underwriters and whoever were okay with the deal, it's very important that that agent knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
We've had several deals where it didn't go that way and we had to force place insurance and those clients were not happy. So it was kind of a godsend to meet you during that time, but also a real wake-up call of exactly what you're saying. The people that you want to work with should be people that do that work often. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a really weird space.
Yeah. Force-placed insurance is always expensive, and it's not, I don't know if it's ever in the client's best interest. It's just more expensive. And of course, it's just frustrating if you can't get things done. As a lender too, if you're lending out that money and then someone has a deal that closes very quickly because it just became available and they just snatched up a deal, you need a quick turnaround from the insurance, as fast as possible, just so the deal doesn't get held up. Yep. It's good to have that reliability.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I think, I kind of brought something to light that maybe some people don't think of when they're choosing insurance or an agent to work with. What is a successful experience for your client, and what is really success in your line of work?
Yeah. Well, specifically for fix and flips, success for me was basically the client would call in, say, hey, I'm buying this property. My hard money lender told me to get in touch with you. I talked to them for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then I call them back with an hour later with a quote. They say, okay, and then 10 minutes later, it's bound. The hard money lender has their certificate of insurance, everything set up for the client, and that was it. The client DocuSigns their application, later on that day. And as far as the insurance piece goes, it's off their plate and they can move forward with their closing. So that's the ideal scenario for folks buying things on a rapid time frame.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are, insurance is kind of like, let's say, gasoline, right? You go there, it's kind of run of the mill. I pick the same thing every time and it just works, right? What do you see as kind of the biggest issue in your industry, helping people find coverage or assessing the kind of risk appetite they're willing to take? And then how do you mitigate that issue? How do you help somebody understand their own risk? I think a lot of times we don't really get, why are we paying insurance?
Right. That's a really good question. It's one of those things that I kind of wish in general people were taught about. In our country, we aren't really taught about money. We aren't really taught about how money works, interest rates, insurance, and what do you get it for? What exactly is the point of it? What does it do for you? So that's one of the things I try to really focus on with any new client, whether they're just buying their first house and they have one car and that's all they got, or they're a seasoned investor. We want to make sure that they're understanding what their policy really does for them in the grand scope of things. And then, of course, I always run through all the coverages with them on the phone to make sure they understand what the hell they're buying. They're spending good money. They want to know what the hell they're buying. And then they feel comfortable with it. So by the time we get off the phone, they have a better sense of appreciation of what the policy does for them, what it doesn't do. We talked about any optional coverages that might specifically apply to them and their family that, since everybody's different, everyone has different needs. And then they feel like I spent the time to go through that with them. They felt like I was invested in, who they are and what they're doing and their unique situation. So that's really my goal, is that again, whether they're just a home buyer or they're an investor, they feel comfortable with the product, they feel comfortable with me, and they feel like I address the major areas of concern. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you're buying a home and when it comes to insurance, you don't know as a home buyer what questions to even ask. So it's my job really to make sure I say, hey, this is a problem or a potential problem for most people. Do you think this is going to be something that is a concern to you, or is this even applicable to you guys? I really try to go through that process so it feels like I'm asking the questions for them and they're just providing answers, more or less.
Yeah. And honestly, you answered my next question, which was how do you stand apart? But I also want to add, from personal experience working with you, to me, what made you stand apart is that you knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You know, the insurance sales guy who wins you over with his charisma and his good looks and all this stuff, you know, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a salesman. I have all these different tactics for things like that. But ultimately, if you don't know what you're talking about and you're selling me something, then I'm going to run into those issues later on. Say, like, you know, just like you're talking about, a homeowner doesn't necessarily think about every single potential problem that could happen. And they definitely don't know the coverage that's assigned to those events, but you do. And in my experience, you've shown that you know that. So I chose to go back with you time and time again because of, you know, that to me really made you stand apart from the other competition. Little plug there for Charles.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, so another couple of bulk questions here for you. How do you adapt to changes in the real estate market? For you, you know, obviously home price is probably a huge factor to that, but even more, you know, as the flipping increases or as people slow down and maybe they start buying more investment properties to hold on to, that landlord policy that people talk about. How do you adapt to that? What changes do you see coming in your industry? You know, because of those things, is that going to be, you know, possibly this crazy spike in insurance costs, or do you think things are going to get better for homeowners on their costs? And then how do you plan to basically continue to be valuable to those people? I know it's a big chunk.
That's a giant question. So let's see here. Yeah. So how do we adapt to changes in the real estate market? So our model, just with Goosehead, our agency, our model is heavily revolving around the real estate market. So we work with realtors and lenders, basically, as our primary folks that we talk to. So yeah, unfortunately, if all of a sudden the real estate market grinds to a halt, typically that's a huge problem for us because our new leads, our new business slows down a lot. And we're going to be heavily reliant on making sure we're getting referrals from our existing clients and taking really good care of them and looking for other marketing avenues. We're really blessed in our area that even though there's a lot of negative things going on externally, we still have crazy high demand in our area. So yeah, listings might be down, but demand is still strong. People still move here. And of course, with low rates that we're experiencing right now, there's still a ton of refinances going around. So that's another opportunity for us to connect with lenders and say, hey, by the way, if your clients are saving money in a refinance, why don't you also check to see if they could save money in the home insurance as well? It's a good time. So there's still opportunities for us to, even in tough times, to forge ahead, despite what the real estate market might be doing. In terms of changes in our industry with relation to that, it shouldn't impact if the home market slows down or speeds up. It's not really going to have a direct impact on home insurance rates as much. Those are all based upon, you know, losses and projections and costs of construction and labor and materials and so forth. So, you know, if there's huge natural disasters like things like Katrina back in 2006 or massive earthquakes we might have coming up in the future, you know, we live on the ring of fire over here. Those are the things that are going to impact home premiums. Thankfully, just from what I've seen in the last 7 years, home premiums are fairly stable, unlike car insurance, which seems to just go up, 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 up. The home insurance, thankfully, in our state here in Washington has been relatively stable. If you're paying, you know, somewhere between $800 to $1,000 a year, that's fairly average from what I've seen. You know, some homes are more, some are less, but thankfully, our industry on the home side of things has been very stable. And I wouldn't expect investors or home buyers to anticipate, you know, a huge spike or a doubling or anything crazy like that for home insurance rates.
Okay, awesome. this kind of leads into the next question, which I know is going to be tough to answer, although you did touch on it. What does insurance cost, let's say for a landlord policy on a single family home in downtown Seattle?
That is a good question. There's going to be, I'll give you a range. I would say on average, for your average home, everything's based upon a bunch of different factors, but really for home, the big ones are the rebuild cost, not the market value, the rebuild cost of the home, and then other factors associated with where exactly it physically is in the zip code. So crime rates and all those kinds of associated things that are different from city to city, those are going to be factored as well. But for your average house, single family in Seattle, you're renting out, I would expect somewhere on the low end, you might get lucky if the home is newer, you might be paying like $650 a year. If it's maybe an older home, like built in the 1920s, 1915, or earlier, maybe turn of the century, you might be paying $1,000. Yeah, there's a surprising amount. We have a lot of folks that have a home that was built in 1908. It comes up. So the rate might be, maybe it's $1,200 a year because it's just an old property. There's a lot of extra exposure with that. And then I would say it's a good range. On the low end, 700-ish per year. On the high end, maybe 1,200, 1,300 a year, depending on property details.
Which, really, when you think about what that, the savings on a tree falling through your house or an earthquake knocking it down, or, with a landlord policy, somebody tripping and hurting themselves on your property during their lease. $1,200 a year could save you $20,000 in attorney's fees alone.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I think that even $1,200 to protect an asset is an incredible deal. And now, Chuck, I want to give you some time here to kind of boast a little bit more about yourself. So,
all right, fair enough.
Why should someone work with you or work with Goosehead?
That is a good question. Like I touched on, so we really emphasize two big things. Number one, education on the front end, so that as the new purchaser, new borrower, or new client, if you lived in your home for a while, you feel comfortable with what you're buying, you understand it, and you feel like I took good care of you and I know what the hell I'm talking about, so I'm making good recommendations for you. And then on the back end, you want to have good service, reliability. You want to have people get back to you quickly, even if you have to leave a message or you got to text our number. You want to feel like you got a response in an appropriate amount of time, given the urgency of your situation. We try to triage our service cases, so that if someone just needs ID cards for the car, that's not quite as important as someone needing to make a emergency change to their policy or add a vehicle, all those kinds of things. So really, I mean, what do I contrast this to? I guess there's, unfortunately, there's some agencies with different companies. They have a different style or method of doing business. Their method is to maybe call as many people as possible or to email as many quotes as possible each day and just see what sticks. We really don't do that. I go through every policy with every new client on the phone. On the phone, we don't need to meet you in person, although we're open to that if you need to. But on the phone is sufficient. But we really try to make sure it's a quality over quantity with our agencies is the short answer. Yeah,
absolutely. And the cool thing about the way that you've set up your business during a pandemic, it's awesome. You can still stay, that 100% quality, that fully there for you type service, and you can do all that stuff over the phone, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a perk. I think I've only met with, fewer than 5 clients in person since I've been with Goosehead, because it's just not necessarily everything is great. It's DocuSign for all the applications. We do all the billing setup on the back end for people, so they don't need to physically sign anything and send it in. It's a very smooth, easy process. I know insurance can be like, oh my God, it's this huge hassle. It's this nightmare to change, and part of my goal is to make it as easy as possible for folks to change. I mean, you think switching out your car insurance is a huge deal. I try to break it down so that I do all the work as much as I can on my side, and the client really just has to make a phone call to the prior carrier, cancel it out, and that's it. So try to make it easy.
And for all of the homeowners that I've worked with, I mean, I probably had at least 30, if not more % of my clients for their home buying insurance, they went through you, and I felt like none of us had to work at it at all. So it was incredible.
Thank you.
Charles, do you have a seminar, a podcast, a Facebook page? Do you have anything that people can go and see online? And if not, or if you do, how do they get there, and how do they get in touch with you?
Thank you. So the best way to get in touch with me is just going to be call or text me. My number here is going to be 425-818-9542. In terms of social media, I actually don't have any, although the best thing to do, all my reviews for my actual clients are on my microsite. So if you just go to Google and you search for Charles Lindberg, Goosehead Insurance, I should probably be the first link that pop up there. You can check out my microsite, it has all my reviews on there, and that's probably the best way to get a unbiased third-party recommendation.
Awesome. You are #1 on the Google search. I did look, and I did see your reviews. You're looking good online. So everybody, make sure you go check out Charles. Charles, thank you so much for coming and answering our 21 questions. Always a pleasure to see you, and I can't wait to do some more deals with you.
Awesome, Alex. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.